Welcome back to The Exclusive. I'm Ilana.
I'm Maleeha.
And we are going to talk to you right now about SB6.
So, if you want to give a little background on what SB6 is in Texas and what's going on in ledge session right now.
Yeah, okay, so Senate Bill 6 is basically a bathroom bill, or that's like, I guess like the name that's been given to it because it is trying to legislate where trans women can use the bathroom, and it's basically trying to put trans women back in the men's restroom and then trans men back in the women's restroom. And so like this can be very problematic for like a few reasons.
All right, so speaking from experience, I remember you told me once before kind of how that would affect you and what kind of a change that would have on you.
Yeah, so like the thing is like I understand like some trans women wanting to use the women's restroom like before transitioning and how that can kind of make women feel uncomfortable, but for trans women like me who have already transitioned and I don't think, I do look like a boy sometimes, but generally when I get all dressed up and stuff, I don't look like I belong in the men's restroom, and so I don't feel like this bill takes the safety of trans women into account.
Yeah, and one of the biggest kind of arguments for this bill is because they're afraid of sexual predation. So putting men in men's restrooms, women in women's restrooms, that to them is kind of a clear distinction between like sex and gender. So they think that if trans women are allowed to go into the women's restroom, then men can dress up as women just as easily and go sexually attack women. And how frequent do you think that happens?
Well, like that's the thing is there's no statistic, there's no study, there's no proof that trans women are disproportionately more of a threat to women in restrooms. Mm-hmm. That is what needs to be the issue here, what needs to be focused on is heterosexual men preying on women. That is the problem that needs to be solved. There's only been one claim in the last 30 years of a so-called transgender person assaulting a woman in a bathroom. Mm-hmm. 30 years.
And like I know I think it was last year, the administration in office, like the federal government, was going to make kind of this big decree and say everyone should go into the restroom that they identify with. There shouldn't be this distinction between sex. If you identify as a man, you go into the men's restroom and vice versa. But recently that's kind of been repealed, and so now the current administration thinks it should go to the state governments. Do you think with that in mind and with SB6, Texas is going to allow women who identify as trans to go into the women's restroom?
Well, I mean, it's really about like doing your part and like collectively, if you are you're not in favor of this bill, like we need to be calling our city officials. I call Greg Abbott almost daily now, and they do listen to their messages, and you just have to like make it and stress the fact and make it known that there is no substantiated proof that trans women are a threat to women in bathrooms. It's really just like we want to use the bathroom, and I just don't think that this is really what should be the main focus right now. If like we're more focused on protecting women, then we wouldn't let people like Brock Turner off. You know, like that is not a big deal, but where I use the bathroom is, like I am not a threat to women, but people like Brock Turner who rape women are.
And that's another good point, is like going back into like the kind of the national government. America is kind of fractured, so a bunch of different states, some have allowed people to have protections if they're transsexual, and then others like Texas aren't allowing them. But then you have countries in Europe, like Denmark allows you to, I think they made a lot of progression in terms of people who identify as trans, and if you can get surgeries and different things like that. So what do you think about just the national government? Do you think there's going to be a federal decree that allows women to, like, if you identify as trans, to go into restrooms, or do you think it's going to be down to the states?
I honestly, I don't know. I think that I'm forgetting the name of it. There was like some ruling. I'm like blanking on it right now, but it was supposed to include trans women in this like protection.
From the 70s? We're not talking about this
I don't know. But I just don't think that it is something that is going to be done easily, and I think that it is going to be left to the states, and so it is up to individuals to call their state representatives and make their voices heard.
And the best way that you can do that, if you just Google find your representative, you can find your zip code and then find which representative you should be calling, and it'll redirect you really easily, and you just call them and you leave a voicemail and you say, hi, I'm a constituent, and if you don't believe that SB6 should be passed, then you say that, and you can include a personal narrative, like I would say my best friend is transgender and she doesn't feel comfortable with that, and then, so forth. So if you have any more questions, you can ask us, but thanks for watching. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, and YouTube, and we'll be back.